The Rise of Kingdoms Openfield meta is always changing, and with the release of Baiki and also Tokugawa into the game, there's been a big shift with the Rise of Kingdoms meta, especially about the viability of a lot of commanders. So today, I'll be updating my Openfield tier list for the current meta, looking at the best commanders right now, and also taking note of which commanders might be less prominent on the open field. So if you're interested in the open field, and you want to know which commanders to look out for, which commanders you should be running, and some of the best pairings in the game right now, you want to stick around till the end of the video. Now, let's start off before we go into the tier list. How am I going to decide which commanders are the best on the field right now? Really, it comes down to two things. What are they bringing to your murderball? Do they have a very good debuff? Do they have a lot of damage, whatever it may be? And how are they trading? Simple as that. That is the two things we're going to be looking at. And that's pretty much going to decide a commander's rank. The top ranks obviously mean the best, and the bottom ranks obviously mean the worst. And the tier list isn't really an investment guide. So some commanders, which I think are not the best investments, may get a higher rank because they're not that bad on the open field compared to the investment tier list video I made about a week ago now. So whenever we do this tier list, you're looking at the best commanders on the field right now, the strongest on the field, but not necessarily the best choice for you to put gold heads in. So do keep that in mind, but with it out of the way, let's switch over to the tier list. Now here is the tier list. Today we have 5 total tiers. OP is the top tier. These commanders are the best in the game right now for the field. Powerful, well, I think that's self-explanatory. They're pretty good. They're usually a secondary to an OP commander. Mid, they've got a use. They might have some situation like a 3-4 March murder ball where they're good, but they're not your go-to. Rare usage, they have something, but I'd pretty much never run them unless you have to. And bad are just the worst commanders in the game. And we're going to start off with a bang. Liu Chair straight in the OP tier. Still one of the best commanders in the game. 5 targets, smite AoE. And with the release of Baiki as well, both of those commanders are just in the OP tier. They're really good paired together. They're really good if you want to split them up for a 3 March infantry murder ball. You can run Liu Chair with Baiki. You can run Liu Chair Alex, Baiki, or William Baiki. And no matter what commander pairing you run with these two, they're gonna be meta. They're 5 target AoE beasts, and while they kind of lack on debuffs, they do make up for it in terms of their damage factor. Ethelfled is the next commander. She's rare. I mean, you can use her for debuffs in some weird situations, and she is free, so she's good in the early game and all that, but she isn't my go-to for the field by any means. Alex, I want to put into the powerful tier today because of the fact that when you split Liu Chair up and you put him with Alex, it's a really good March, and still now Liu Chair Alex is a very good pairing at the moment. So Liu Chair and Alex, both very good commanders together. Otherwise, if you don't have an Alex with a Liu Chair or Liu Chair Alex, Alex is probably around the mid tier. But when you pair them together, it is a very good March. If you can't though, I'd put him at the mid tier. So he's going to be probably the bottom of the powerful tier. Attila, he's mid. He's got some uses with Super Tai. He's definitely quite a tanky and annoying commander and still quite anti-swarm. So I think he is worth the mid tier. Belisarius also mid. One of the okay cav commanders, but there are much better commanders in the game instead of running Belisarius Prime. He is just too squishy, and his debuffs, they're very good, but they don't really make up for it, especially when you look at a bigger murder ball. When you're moving to 6-7 marches, he becomes worth it, but otherwise, he isn't a pickup for most players. Pakal, he's a rare usage. I'll also just put Harold with him as well. Both of those commanders, they're kind of outdated nowadays. They used to be a swarm meta or anti-swarm meta, and they used to have a lot of instant damage, but now there's just better ways to be more tanky. For example, you can use marches such as Attila with Subutai, even though that's not the most overpowered pairing. There's just better ways, and also not to mention much stronger commanders nowadays who will just melt a Pakal and Harold. So they're not very good anymore. Maybe for like 6 infantry marches, you'll have to bust them out, but they wouldn't be a go-to. Next up, we have Xiao Xiao, and he's bad. Besides barbing in early game, he's pretty much useless. Chandragupta, he's rare. I mean, he's okay debuffs. You don't even really want to run him unless you absolutely have to, and I'd much rather a Belisarius Prime before I got a Chandragupta. Charlemagne is bad. I'm pretty sure this is John or the other commander, but to my knowledge, both of the newer ranged commanders, I think one of them's Stefan, one of them's John. I'm pretty sure this is Stefan, this is John. They're not the best of the ranged commanders. There are better ranged commanders. However, you can certainly run them if you do choose to run extra marches. I'm almost certain this is Stefan and this is John. So Stefan and John, very similar power levels. That's why I don't really memorize their names off the top of my head. For some reason, I'm forgetting them. I know they're similar power levels, and I know they're pretty average compared to the other ranged marches. So I think mid is worth it. Charles Martel, he's probably at the rare usage tier towards the top of it though. Quite tanky, good for the early game. I recommended him in my infantry investment guide. But after that is not the best choice. You could just get an Alex if you really wanted a more tanky commander. Or you could even go for commanders like Liu Chan by Key, who are going to be better. CJ, rare usage if you really need him, but he's not going to be very good. Flavius is just bad on the field. Another CJ, or this is Chio Young. Mid at best, he can be okay when you put him with Shajar, but not very good. We're going to put all the Gathering Commanders in bad. Tokugawa, I'm pretty sure for Openfield, he's probably mid as well, just because he's brand new, his damage and all that is up to meta standards, but a lot of his stats are locked behind being a rally, and he would easily fall out of this tier within the next commander release, so I don't think he's going to hold mid, but right now I will put him there. Constantine, rare usage if you want to tank. Gilgamesh, rare usage if you need his debuffs for like a Garrison Swarm or something. When we look at YSS, he's useless. Zenobia is useless on the field. Edward of Woodstock is very bad on the field. Frederick is bad on the field. El Cid is bad on the field. Gajamata, he's mid. All the range commanders besides the best March, they're decent, but they're very hard to run. So I'm going to put all of them in the mid tier. The best March, once we come around to it, I'll put the best commanders into the powerful tier. But most range commanders are still around the mid tier just because they're difficult to use and the fact that you need to have open field control to get full value out of them. YSG, getting towards the bottom of the mid tier nowadays just because there are a lot more archer commanders and archers are quite outdated at the moment and they're not doing too good. YSG is facing the same issue, so mid is probably the best for him. Cyrus, rare usage, you can use him to swarm a garrison or something if you need his debuffs, but it wouldn't be a go-to. Subutai, brand new commander, pretty decent with Attila, can work really, really well. Arthur Pendragon, straight in the OP tier, one of the best commanders in the game, good as a combo commander and also good as just a regular damage factor commander. He is certainly one of my go-to choices. Hannibal Barker is bad. Honda, rare usage, maybe mid. Actually, I'll put him in mid just because he is kind of a generic commander. You can use him with anyone, but he's nowhere near as good as he used to be. Guan Yu, probably towards top of the mid tier, but definitely not the best infantry now. Doesn't really make it into the top 3 marchers, in my opinion. If you look at like 4 or 5 infantry marchers, then you'll pick up a Guan. For the majority of players, though, he isn't really used, which is why I think mid is the best tier. Kind of outdated, kind of squishy, really, which does make him a bit more mid. Khan, rare usage. You can use him for some weird cav pairings, but he's just not the best commander. Bertrand, he's quite average overall. He can do pretty decent on the field in some situations, but he's very old compared to some of the newer commanders, and he never had the best damage factor. He's kind of just sat around this tier for quite a while. Artemisia, rare usage nowadays because Boudica isn't too amazing. CPO, on the other hand, I'll put him in the powerful tier, almost on the OP tier. Now there are better infantry commanders. CPO is going to start to struggle a little bit, but he's certainly still a very, very good commander for the open field. He's probably the top of the powerful tier, or one of the 2 top commanders, which is why I think that he is worthy of this tier, almost in the OP tier, but I think some of the OP commanders, they're just that slight bit above CPO for most situations. So CPO powerful is the most fair place in my opinion. Gonzalo, he's one of the really good range commanders, so I'm going to put him into powerful as well. Nebu, quite average. You can use him on the field, but he wouldn't be a go-to. Eleanor, maybe if you're desperate for a cav pairing, but she's also not a go-to. Suleiman is a joke. Joan Prime, definitely powerful commander still nowadays. Nevsky with Joan Prime is still okay. Arthur Pendragon, though, does pair better with commanders like Hao Bing and Nevsky, which means Joan has seen a bit of a fall off in her capabilities because her best commanders are often paired with Arthur Pendragon, or she's like a Nevsky Joan is against an Arthur Pendragon, which means she does get worse trades. So Joan, powerful tier in my opinion, is a fair place to put her. Jadwiga, bad is a very fair place. Caesar, rare cases. If you have a really, really fast raid cycle commander and you want a pretty mid-secondary commander, you can use Caesar, but he's almost into that bad tier. Mehmed and Honda are almost identical. Jan Ziska, if you need a little bit of AoE and you're desperate for a cav march, you can run him. Very similar to Eleanor, though, not going to be the best on the field. Lubu was a joke. Mulan, if you need a buffing march, but I just get a Philip. Ragnar, he's pretty bad nowadays. There's no reason to really run him or even consider getting him because of the fact you can just get a different commander through commander swapping. So Ragnar, no reason to even consider him. Leonidas, very similar situation, horrible commander. Henry, probably towards this section of the archers here is a good spot to put Henry, really. Kind of becoming outdated, not the most tanky anymore. Damage is quite low compared to a lot of the more modern commanders, so he's quite an average commander. Can run him, I could still run him if I really want. He just isn't going to hit as hard as my other newer commanders, who are currently trading better on the open field. Same case for Boudica. She's quite average on the field right now, which is obviously going to happen since she is becoming much older, and the fact that archers are just getting wrecked by everything. Archers right now, not very good on the field, as much as it pains me to say it. Most of them are going to sit in the mid tier. I don't think I'm going to put any in the OP tier today. Maybe Zooge, I'll have to consider it. But for the most part, most of them are in the mid tier, or a few are in the powerful tier. So Boudica, quite an average commander nowadays. Does outperform some of the commanders here, but she's very squishy, and her debuff is becoming quite outdated. Moctezuma, we don't care about. Tarek, bottom-ish of the average tier. I think we can move Henry up, if I'm being honest. It's a bit harsh to put him that low. But when we look at Tarek, he's an okay commander for sure. He just isn't the most overpowered. Zhulang, I'll put him into OP for now, just because he still does have absurd damage. If we don't see a really good archer pairing with him, though, in the next cycle, I will warn, he's almost certainly going to go down to the powerful tier. So for now, Zhulang can go to the OP tier, but for the most part in future, he may get moved down unless the next archer release is really good, and archers are the next commanders to come out. Gorgo, she's decent on the field for sure, but she's around that top 4 of the mid tier. They've got a use, but they're not the most overpowered. I think I will make a decent tier for some of these commanders, which are kind of good, but just don't have the actual strength of some of the powerful commanders. I think decent tier is a good spot. So all these commanders, they do better than the mid commanders here. They've got a use, they're quite decent, but they are just a little bit below those powerful commanders. Some of them, like Attila and Subutai, not the most overpowered, but they are pretty good for the field, and commanders like Boudica are just slowly starting to wear off. So I think decent is a pretty good tier to put a lot of these commanders who just can't perform at that top level. Ishida is useless. Heraclius, okay AoE, fairly tanky, but wouldn't be a go-to. Hao Trebing, I'll put him into the OP tier, probably the best pairing right now with Arthur Pendragon, and it makes the current best Cav March, so easily worth that overpowered ranking. Thutmose, he's quite bad, I wouldn't consider him. Philip II, still quite a powerful commander, not the best in the game, but he has his use cases, and his buffs are very good. So powerful is a good spot to put him, and he's kind of like a generic secondary you can put with a lot of commanders. So I do like Philip II as a commander on the list, not to mention he's okay with Baiki. Not meta, but an okay pairing if you don't have a William and you do happen to have a Philip. Justinian, probably a very low tier mid commander, kind of getting old, kind of getting outdated, and his stats are doing the same thing. Sargon, also quite an average commander, very similar to Tarek. Minamoto, very similar to a lot of the average commanders here, not really at the decent tier. There are much better Cav choices to get instead of him, so he wouldn't really be my go-to. Ditto, quite a bad commander for the most part. Ragnar Prime, on the other hand, is OP. Him and CPO paired together are really, really good. I think maybe I'll put CPO into the OP tier as well, just because of how well they do pair together, but CPO is certainly the bottom of the tier with Zhulang. So right now, both of these commanders are at risk of being moved down, but because of how well Ragnar with CPO is doing, and the fact that it's just such an insane AoE march, I think OP tier is fair for both of them. Nevsky, powerful, is quite a decent spot to put him. Ramses, I think, rare, probably bad. If anything, it's not like he's gotten better since the last tier list, so bad is a good spot to put him. Same with Richard, very, very weird commander to run, purely because the healing is going to be a downside for the most part. Scipio Melianus, quite an average commander. Saladin, rare usage if you need like a slowing commander who has very average damage factor, but is somewhat tanky. Saladin wouldn't be a go-to, but you can kind of get away with him if you really, really need it. Pyrrhus, similar situation to Saladin, can get away with him if you really, really need it for an infantry march, but definitely not one of the meta commanders. Margaret, best commander currently for Siege in my opinion with Gonzalo, so definitely worth the powerful tier. Herman Prime, one of the better arch commanders still in the game with Zhulang. They're going to be a pretty decent pairing, but like Zhulang, is kind of at the mercy of the next archer release. If he gets a really good pairing, he could go up a tier. If he doesn't, he might even get moved down a tier. But I think powerful is probably the spot for Herman. Just keep in mind his debuffs and the power of his debuffs are slowly wearing out, because we're seeing more commanders who do stuff like smite damage and combo damage, which aren't affected by Herman's very good skill damage taken debuff. Astro Bunnypile, probably the top of the decent tier, the best commander of this tier, but just not strong enough to make it into the powerful tier because of the new better commanders who are kind of whooping all the archers' ass. Amana Torre, very bad commander, wouldn't run her. Sundok, similar situation. Shajar, I'll put her at the bottom of the powerful tier. Good single target damage, decent with a lot of the archer commanders, and could possibly become quite a strong commander in the future. So Shajar, I think, is worthy of the powerful tier. Takeda, Rare usage with Attila, not very good. Theodora is a joke. Tamiris is not good anymore. Trajan, rare usage if you have him as like a buff commander already, but I'd much rather a Philip over a Trajan almost any day. William, quite mid nowadays. While he's still a usable cav commander, he wouldn't be a go-to for the majority of players in almost every single situation. The other William, definitely a powerful commander though, very good with the new buy key as like a second or third infantry march, and it is in my opinion in the meta lineup for most murderballs. So William definitely has seen a bit of a spike in strength because of his power with buy key, especially once you move to 3 infantry marches where you split by key and split Leo chair. William is an essential commander, really. Wizetian is a bad commander. Zhang Yu, pretty average for the most part. Not the worst in the game, but not the best. And finally, Barber, again, a pretty average commander overall, just because Siege can be difficult to run. So this is the final tier list. When we look at it, this is the full ranking from the best commanders in the game, just all the commanders up here, all the way down to the worst commanders in the game. These commanders obviously need to be manipulated to fit your best murder ball. I wouldn't just follow this exact order, and while you could invest in them in this exact order and be in a fairly good situation, do consider that some of the commanders will perform better with other ones. So for example, if you're going to get Zulang, I would not get Nevsky and Joan before I got Herman Prime, because then your Zulang has no pairing. But this is generally the best open field order in my opinion as of May for 2025. Now, if you made it to the end of today's video and you found it helpful, please do consider leaving it a like. Likes do help me when I want to make new videos. It kind of says, oh, people like this, or people don't really like this because it has no likes on it. So if you did find this video helpful or useful, consider pushing the like. It does help support me as well, because more people will be able to see the video. If you have any feedback as well for the list, tell me in the comments. I generally listen to most comments. I'll ask other people I know who are very knowledgeable in the game as well what they think about some of the comments. So I will take that into account. If you think that there was something in today's video that maybe was misranked or should be up or down a rank, please do consider letting me know. Other than that though, I just want to say thank you all for watching, and I hope to see you in the next one.